All right, man. So back for my first episode of the new year. I got lazy towards the end of last year, but you've been pumping out a lot of stuff.
Well, I'm trying. But you've seen, and we just spoke before, it works in like flows, pull and push periods. Sometimes you're able to just push on the content. Other times, pull back. I'm sure you were tired towards the end of last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was partially that, aside from like just time-wise, for some reason, my Decembers tend to get very busy. They don't slow down, which you think they would. Like, people are going on holiday and you think they're going to care less about their physique or health or whatever the case is. But potentially, I'm not sure if it's a US thing or an overseas thing, but things were picking up very rapidly towards the end of last year.
In terms of inquiries or?
In terms of inquiries, and it was, interestingly enough, a lot of older clients that were coming back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably feeling shit come end of the year.
Yeah, I guess so.
Nice that they get a jump on it though.
No, for sure.
Not like 2nd of January, they're then expecting something.
100%.
Yeah.
What are the trends that you kind of notice in terms of, you actually asked me an interesting question now about how I manage time with mostly overseas clients. Are you mainly coaching South Africans or also overseas?
No, I would say we're probably 60-40.
Okay.
At the moment, 60% here,
Okay.
40% overseas. But time difference, I wouldn't say is a huge issue.
Mainly
for me.
Europeans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mainly. Just sometimes I have to do calls till late. You know, like I've got calls booked at 7 tonight because it'll be 5 in England.
Yeah.
So that's the only, I mean, it's not a huge time difference, 2 hours. But I was just wondering for you because there's such a significant time difference.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, and I'm sure you're on the same boat as me, is that if it's something that you really enjoy doing, you're willing to make those time sacrifices. It doesn't, like, people were asking me on the weekend, well, what is your hobby? Like this.
Yeah.
This is my hobby. Like, when I have downtime, it's not really downtime because then I'm studying or, learning more, and I find that fun.
I was actually having this thought the other day where I think at certain times in my career, it's been like all consuming. It's been too overwhelming.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking the other day when I was driving in reflection, I was like, I think for you to be a good coach, it has to be consuming. You know, just like you said now, where it is 24/7.
Yeah.
That comes with it. If you want to be really, really good at it, it's not the normal switch on, switch off.
I completely freaking agree with you. And I was having this conversation with a new client that joined yesterday, a competitor, and he had been with a number of other local coaches. And the resounding theme is like, they don't get back to me on time. I email them or message them or whatever the case is, and they either don't respond at all, or it's like 72 hours later, and, basically just not showing up, not putting in the 50%. And I think that's when you're coaching as a second priority.
100%.
Where it's like, well, I'm doing this to pay for my bodybuilding or whatever the case is.
100%.
When that's not your primary motivation. I bodybuild because I'm a coach first, and I just want to kind of remind myself, what are these guys going through again?
Yeah.
But I don't have any ambitions for myself as an athlete. I have ambitions for myself as a coach.
Yeah. I can totally relate to it. Like, I train not because I'm super focused on my physique anymore. I train because it helps me manage the stress. I better do what I'm telling my clients to do. But 100%, my physique is not the priority. It's helping people and helping others. And I'm not sure about you, when you hear these stories and I've heard them as well, people are taking 4 days to respond, don't check in. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I knew there was messages there and me not doing what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? Dude, like, I take it very, very personally.
100%. Like, I sometimes can't sleep at night. Well, when I really started, I'm not talking about because I started coaching when I was, in inverted commas, when I was like 19. But of course, that was part-time. I never thought this will be something that I would make a living from.
Yeah.
But it's never thought it was something that I thought I would make a living from. And when I started doing it full time and knowing, okay, well, I'm going to sleep now, and I know that there are going to be people checking in, even though I know in my head, hey, listen, I just need to respond within a 24-hour window.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep knowing that people were checking in, and I'd want to be like waking up at 2:00 in the morning to get back to people immediately, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy, but that level of service is definitely what can set you apart. And you made an interesting comment now about your own physique not being like as much of a priority anymore. But you first came into my radar many years ago when you were, I think you like were an athlete for aesthetics era and a couple other things.
You were competing and stuff.
You were competing. How did that shift take place, and why did that shift take place?
So I think for me, I started training because I was insecure. I wasn't confident. It felt like I needed to fix myself. Felt like it wasn't good enough. Mentally, physically, well, the physical just happened to be an extension of the insecurity, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But then once I developed the physique, and I can confidently say I suppose you could say I was an influencer. I was posting for validation, but then it was too shallow for me. Like I felt empty with that being what I was defined as, what I was whatever as. And the whole time I'd been studying at university, studying exercise science, and I'd been working, and I just found slowly but surely that gave me fulfillment, helping. That gave me fulfillment, pushing people, seeing them win. And then like the athlete side of me phased out because it wasn't very deep for me. I worked really hard and competed because I thought that was important to me, but it wasn't actually. It was more that helped me get attention to help other people, if that makes sense.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
So that side of me just phased out the more I pushed myself into actually coaching.
Did you enjoy anything about it?
Competing?
Yeah.
I enjoyed the suffering.
That's a weird thing to say, but I think it's a pretty common thread.
I hated the competitions, hated it. Every time I went there, I didn't like being on stage. I didn't like, it sounds weird, I didn't like the attention and the judging of you on the day. And it just, like, it felt unauthentic to me, but I loved the suffering. I loved pushing myself to the extreme. Could I do that now? No. Definitely.
I'm sure you could if you found a reason to.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it was like it was anger driven.
You're trying to prove a point.
Yeah, I was trying to prove a point to myself, trying to prove a point maybe to others. So it was the suffering, it was the prep that I enjoyed. It was the really, really pushing and pushing and pushing and just seeing how far could you go before you cracked. You know?
Yeah, dude, I completely resonate with that because I have a lot of clients like Pet, for example, who, by the way, isn't here today because he's sick. I just think he doesn't want to be here if you're here because he likes all the attention. Which brings me to my point, but a dude like that loves both.
Yeah.
But he loves performing. He loves show day. He loves being on stage. He loves posing.
Yeah.
He puts hours and hours and hours into his posing practice.
There's a difference between loving performing, showing your art and craft, compared to stare at me, I'm so great.
Yes.
Which I think a lot of people understandably get into competing is for the validation. Whereas but those people you see stick around have a deeper mental thing that they want to accomplish. And then their physique happens to be a byproduct of that.
Absolutely.
Present your craft, present your art. And it's very easy to see when someone's doing bodybuilding as like an art compared to, I want attention, if you know what I mean.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's what I feel I've seen.
You're right. And then, okay, so by extension then, if you aren't competing anymore, what kind of space are you occupying in terms of coaching? Are you predominantly coaching like genpop people, competitors? What combination?
I would say genpop for sure. Within that, there are some people that are very experienced.
Yeah.
And then there are some people who are definitely less experienced. But for me, of course, we make our, reputation as coaches on pictures.
Yeah.
How good can you make someone look? But I think for me now, that's a byproduct of something I enjoy more, which is what kind of person can you develop into through the coaching? Because and I know someone can look great, but they haven't really changed as a person. And that for me is the big thing I try and instill in clients now. And luckily, I'm attracting those types of people. It's more about what is the person that you can become, and a byproduct of that happens to be that you look great.
100%.
Yeah.
So, what kind of like, I guess, challenges do you find coaching predominantly Gen Pop? Because the challenge of coaching both.
Yes.
People either have a perception that coaching Gen Pop clients is easier because it's less complex, which is not necessarily true. And then people have a perception that coaching Gen Pop is easier.
Yeah.
Easier because it's less complex, or harder because they tend to be less compliant.
Yeah.
What are the challenges that you find?
Yeah, I think the thing I see most is getting people to understand that it's not black and white. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of gray. So it's getting someone to understand that, how can I explain this now? Getting someone to understand that the change that they need is much deeper than just losing weight.
Okay.
And getting them to buy into that process through the education, through my podcast, through, as much material as possible to get them to understand that we need to get from point A to point B, but you also need to go a little bit deeper than that, or a lot deeper than that, than just that change.
So go into that a little bit more. What do you like? Get into some details there.
So,
because I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So what you see a lot on social media now, it's almost like, I just need to follow a diet. Mm-hmm. That's what's been sold now. Like, everyone thinks that this coach is going to have like the perfect diet. Now, sure, there's
like something different.
Yeah.
To what other coaches are doing.
Now, of course, there's tactics within it.
Yes, of course.
And whatever the case may be. But what the person needs to understand is, okay, well, why when they're stressed do they respond a certain way? Mm-hmm. Why is their behavior being this negative cycle over and over again? Mm-hmm. Why do they not pursue a better version of themselves when things get difficult? Mm-hmm. So, because if you see a competitor, when it gets difficult, that's when most competitors rise.
Yes.
Same with me. When things get harder in my life, that's when I come better.
That's when you step up.
Exactly. But with Gen Pop, it's not always the case. It's sometimes when people are met with that wall, they tend to then go to their default setting. Mm-hmm. So it's about getting through to them on a much deeper level and getting them to zoom out on why the next 6 months are important for the next 6 years. Not just, I need to lose weight, I need to start training. For me, that's a beginner level. The type that I like to coach is more, what kind of man, what kind of woman can you become? How can you be a better husband, a better father? How can you become a better businessman through the extension of self-improvement on a daily basis?
Dude, I love that so much, because people do have this perception that this is a very shallow industry, and sure, it absolutely can be.
100%.
But one of the reasons why I think I pursued it and why I became so passionate about it is because when I started training, when I started dieting, when I was like pretty much obese at 17, 18 years old, it changed me as a person.
100%.
It 100% changed me.
So you saying you were obese. What was your weight?
When I kind of midway through matric, I was about 112, 113.
Hectic.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that you say coaching is an extension of you changing as a person through it. The same for me. I wasn't obese, but I had to change a lot mentally and overcome some internal issues, I guess you could say. And that's my extension for coaching.
Yeah.
So though our starting points might have been different, we've both gone through this journey of self-improvement, which has then led us to wanting to coach on a deeper level. Because like you said, it is a very superficial profession, industry, if you allow it to be that.
If you allow it to be that.
Yeah.
For sure. You see, you see people kind of return to their default settings when things get hard.
Yes.
And it's about getting them out of that. Like at the end of the day, you don't want to just coach people who are easy.
No.
Because if you're coaching people who it's easy to coach, then you don't improve.
Yeah, I feel like if someone's too easy, then I don't feel like I've earned the right to say influence that.
Yeah, like you've been a part of that transformation.
Yeah, like I want to have a story with the person of how we got through X, Y, and Z, how they improved, how they overcame the challenges that have held them back for years. Like I want some grit and some story behind each person.
Absolutely.
To know that I helped If someone just goes, I'm like, oh, I feel like I didn't actually do much.
Yeah. I find like I always pick up, particularly for the genpop clients, when things are getting hard, when somebody who is always checking in on time, same day, same time of the day, every single week, and then all of a sudden it's like they miss a check-in, they miss 2 check-ins,
100%.
then they're checking in 3 days later, but they're not giving you all the information. They're not saying anything's wrong, but you know something.
Yeah.
You know something is
So
wrong.
that's a big part of what I have to do, is try catch people before they fall or while they're falling and keep them moving. You can't, to be honest, you can't save everyone. It's impossible. There's some people that maybe it's not the right time or whatever the case may be, but that's a big part of what I have to do, is continuously coach them in a way that we anticipate a problem that's going to come, have the skill set to get past it. If we do encounter a problem, solve it as quickly as possible. Because the issues are, genpop is so complex, especially with some people.
What kind of issues would you usually experience?
I guess why do you stop when things aren't perfectly aligned? If you know what I mean. So if your life is not perfectly set up for it, why do you not carry on? And the deeper thing, I think, is why do you not want to improve more? So not necessarily become the best, but what is holding you back from continuously trying to get better and better and better, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, you will share this personality traits as well. Why would you not want to get better?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Exactly. So if someone's got a part of them that's in there, then I dig it out and we pursue it.
Do you think it's often, this is what I pick up, I feel like it's often a belief that they can't.
I feel like for a lot of people, I don't want to say they don't want to try. That's not the phrase I'm actually looking for. But like you say, they almost believe that there's a cap, there's a limit. And that's the one thing that I see time and time again, is limiting beliefs. So someone's told themselves a story and then they believe that.
And I feel like, based on kind of coming back to what you said earlier, based on the kind of before and after type content that you see on social media, without the backstory, without the, hey, this person actually went through this and went through this and went through this to get to this point, the expectation without the elaboration makes it seem very linear.
Yes.
Because it's like fat picture where you're frowning and look all sad, and then lean picture where you look all happy and super excited, and none of the crap that went on in between that. But there's always the crap that goes on in between that.
But then that's also when I feel I can tell when a coach is really good, is when they can tell the story behind the person. Whereas if it's just like, this person lost 20 kgs, I'm like, okay, but what actually happened? And I think it's a duty as a coach, like you say, to tell the story, because then people will understand, hey, there's many levels underneath this. Don't look at the outcome of 6 months later and be like, I want that. You must also want the story that comes under that.
And be prepared for what's involved.
Yeah.
Because that's why people will drop out of the process, is because they come into it expecting something, and then they encounter the challenges and the setbacks that they didn't know are inherent to the process.
Yeah.
And then they think, well, oh, this is just me.
100%.
And it's like, no, but most people,
Yeah.
Most people encounter those
100%.
Challenges.
But if you look at sales, it's about quick, easy, efficient. You know what I mean? So the vast majority of the fitness industry is salespeople, not necessarily coaches.
Something that I say a lot.
So if I can make something seem easy, quick, not complex, cheap, then obviously I'm going to gravitate towards that as any person. So the more you make it easier and the more you show that it's easy on your social media, and you show this, oh, it's all perfect, everyone comes into my program and look what they do. But it will often be very short periods of time, those kinds of transformations.
Yeah.
Then people become conditioned to think that is it. It's easy. Whereas if you now as a coach post, hey, this person really battled we had to get the X, Y, and Z. It doesn't necessarily sell you as well, but I also feel that attract the right people.
I was just going to say it sells you
Yes.
to the kind of client that
It
you
doesn't
would
sell
want.
you to a mass.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I feel like and I also feel the people that don't coach people, coaches that are, how can I say this? There's a lot of people on Instagram that are coaches that don't coach their clients.
Yeah, because in coaching, I say this to a lot of people. I feel like the term coach inherently implies teaching, not telling people what to do.
100%.
You're teaching,
Yes.
especially with the kind of, because I mean, I would say I'm kind of 50-50 gen pop competitors, and I enjoy both, and I want to keep both in my roster for different reasons.
Yeah.
But particularly with the gen pop clients, you don't want a situation where they have to be with you forever.
No.
You don't want that.
You want them to be independent.
Yes, and how do you do that? Well, you have to teach them. You can't just tell them what to do.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, I think people need to be aware that there can be massive coaches on social media, but they don't do any of the coaching. They'll have people doing it. So for you and I...
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for you and I, if we accept a client, we know how much time we have to put into that person.
Mm-hmm.
We know what we have to give. We know the toll it can take on us. So we're obviously going to be more inclined to say the correct message, to attract what we want, and what we gravitate with, so the partnership works.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm doing no coaching and I've got 5 people under me, or whatever the case may be, or I've got some kind of system where, very generic, I'm just selling you a diet.
Yeah.
I don't care what person comes. I just care, can I make the sale?
Yeah.
So I've seen it. You've got to be so aware of, if you're hiring someone, are they doing the coaching? Because then they're going to be far more specific with the type of person they bring in for the load that it brings onto us, compared to sell a plan. They're not going to care what person comes in as long as there's a transaction.
Yeah, man, there's a very stringent process that I'll go through before I take on a new client. So I'll get an application. And listen, this is set up fairly easily for me because I work through Pro Physique, so they have a lot of systems set up. But I found as I kind of got more advanced, I needed to put in certain systems myself. So they'll send me a basic application form.
Yeah.
And then what I'll ask a person to do is fill out a larger, more comprehensive intake form. Number one, because I need that level of information. Number two, because I find that's already a bit of a gauge for me to use. How much effort are you willing to put into
100%.
this?
100%.
Are you willing to fill out 5 questions?
Yeah.
Because anybody can do that. Are you willing to fill out 25 questions?
Yeah.
And upload pictures and, give me context surrounding some of those questions.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I'll do is get on a call, good 30, 45 minute Zoom call. And a lot of people go, oh no, can't I just sign up? And I'm like, no, because I need to assess whether I want to work with you.
Yeah. Whether you can help them or whether it will be a partnership.
Is this going to be a fit?
100%.
Because the personality has to fit. And listen, through all that, you still can't necessarily only filter out the people that are going to be suitable for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, other people do slip through the cracks, but it does make it better and it does make
100%.
it more efficient. And that's not for me. That's also for the clients, because you don't want that person working with you if they're not
100%.
going to be a fit for you.
Imagine you just had a sign up button and it took them to a payment link and transaction occurred and now boom, it's your responsibility.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of websites are. It's here's the price, here's the sign up, go. So where's the
Nuance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got a very basic application form just to provide some details. I can tell pretty much in the first communication whether this person is the right fit or not. Because if I get a one-word response, I get very unenthusiastic. I'm like, there's going to be a lot more things you have to do in this coaching process than just answer my initial questions.
Yeah.
So same as you want to assess the person, because as much as, like you say, we want to make sure it's the right fit, it has to work. It's a partnership.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you could get, I hesitate to use this term, but just for lack of a better term, let's just say a bad client. And what I mean by that is maybe somebody that just doesn't align with you in the way that you do
Yes.
things, or somebody who's just at that point in their lives entirely non-compliant,
Yeah.
even if it's on them, it's a bad reflection of you.
100%. I'll still take it very personally on my behalf. I
Dude.
failed. 100%. But like, I mean, for example, if someone comes to me and they're like, "Oh, I just want to lose weight in 8 weeks," I'm like, "No, it's not for me. There needs to be more substance."
I always ask myself that if I ever have a client that walks away not having achieved X outcome that we discussed in the beginning, or somebody like you said that goes through a certain life event or a certain stressor or weeks of chronic stress and end up bailing out of the process, on one level I understand it, but on another level I'm always asking myself and stress myself out about it. What could I have done differently to not let it get to that point?
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes the answer is nothing, but you never know. So you have to ask yourself those questions.
But I still think even if it's nothing, which does happen, it's still good to ask those questions of yourself, because then it shows that you've got humility within your coaching, that you're not perfect, and there's always room to improve. If you're just a coach that says, "Oh, well, fuck that person, they didn't come to the party,"
Yeah.
then you're probably missing gaps in what you could do better.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. It's always take it personally. I do take it personally. I'll message someone, they just keep ignoring me. And I'm like, "Oh, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe there was something at the beginning that didn't add up," or whatever the case may be. But I think you have to question yourself. If you think that you are the best coach and everyone must come in and just do what you say, then you're not really coaching like you say. You're just dictating.
I love what you said. If you think you're the best coach. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here and start getting more coaches is because I don't want the perception to be that there is a best coach.
No,
There are
so
definitely
dependent.
not good coaches,
Yeah.
but there are a bunch of good coaches, and your best coach is going to be defined by who you are as a person.
100%.
That personality alignment.
100%.
Because it's like a marriage.
Yes.
To a certain extent, it's almost deeper than like even very deep friendships, because there's a level of honesty that needs to be present there that maybe you don't even have with a friend.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and how willing are you going to be super direct and honest and upfront about what's happening in your life, physically, emotionally, in terms of your relationship and family, things that can be affecting your ability to implement certain strategies with somebody that you don't even like.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
You have to have that rapport.
So after you said that, would you say one of the best parts that you enjoy about coaching is building a partnership with someone?
Dude, it's the best.
100%. That's what I love as well.
It's the absolute best. Like, especially when you've been working with somebody for years, or maybe it's not even years. Maybe it's just the journey that you go through, whether it be a few months or several years. But when you see that person, and that's why I do like to tell the story, because every single person that comes to me or you probably has some level of self-doubt or some level of insecurity about who they are, what they can achieve, etc. And to see that person achieve that goal, and most often exceed that goal, if you develop a relationship with that person and a friendship with that person and a bond with that person and a rapport with that person, it means so much to you outside of, hey, this is something cool that I can post on social media that's going to get me more clients.
100%.
It's actually like, hey, I care about this person and I help to change their lives.
100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And it matches the journeys we took,
Yeah.
where we went through struggles. We went through the pain and discomfort, and we just, refused to quit, basically. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, fuck, so happy with the person I've become.
Exactly.
I know that for myself, overcoming certain things. And I'm like, thank shit, I kept pursuing it. Thank goodness I sorted myself out. Same with you. Imagine if you're 130 kgs now.
Yeah. Dude, and you see, that's the thing. It's like, it is so much deeper than that, because I had zero work ethic. in my life. I had zero work ethic. I was lucky enough to be intelligent enough to get through school without working.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be decent at a couple of sports and do quite well at those, but I never worked at anything.
Yeah.
But when you finish matric and you're obese and you're getting, teased and comments are getting passed, and then you find out, okay, well, it's not just that, you're actually objectively unhealthy and are probably not going to live a very long and fruitful life.
Yeah.
You can't change that by not having a work ethic. So I found my work ethic in training and bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But now that's just become a default setting.
Exactly.
100%. Without the intention that it just happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was something you were going to say there. Don't you find potentially, because you went from where you were to now everyone's had different influences, environments. It's super impactful on how someone was raised and whatever. Don't you find because you did it, you feel like, not anyone can do it, but like, if you really want to change, like it's possible.
Anyone can do it, but not everyone is going to want to do it.
No, 100%.
Because people think that they want to do it, and they interpret themselves not being able to do it as I can't do it, not just when in fact it's just I don't want it badly enough to actually do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Or I'm not entirely aware of everything that I need to do.
Yeah.
They enter the process maybe uneducated about exactly what it's going to take. And when they find out what it's going to take, then it's like, no, I can't do that. It's like, no, you absolutely can.
Yeah.
You absolutely can. It's just not a priority to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean.
Because you can find, realistically, you can find a way around almost anything,
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is whatever challenge is presented to you, there are always options to, even if it's a matter of going, hey, listen, you want to get down to this level of body composition in this amount of time. Given your context, that's going to be unrealistic.
Yeah.
So we can extend the amount of time that it takes you to get there, or we can, align your expectations of what you can achieve during that certain time frame. But you can do it. You just have to make certain concessions. It's like, if you want this, you have to give up this. You have to build a bridge between your goals and the actual inputs that you need to do to achieve that,
I think
because they often don't align.
Yeah. I think it's a broader issue, not just in physique development, but it's accepting trade-offs.
Yes.
And you see it in physique development, like night and day, where someone will want X, but they don't want the trade-off that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And it's something I've had to get really good at with coaching, with the life that we live, is that there's fucking trade-offs.
Yeah.
Get used to it. If you want to have the great coaching business, and if you want to do well and you want to help people, there's a trade-off of maybe you have no hobbies, maybe you have no life outside of coaching.
Yeah.
And make peace with it. And the same for getting physique development. It's like, okay, you might not get to sleep in. You might have to focus on your food more. You might have to really become more educated on nutrition and training. That's even for genpop, I push that at them. Accept that trade-off that comes with it.
Yeah.
Because if you're at this constant internal struggle, the worst thing you can do, I think, with physique development is wanting X, but then not accepting the trade-offs and then becoming upset and frustrated by that.
Yeah. I feel like partially it's the one area of life, maybe not the one area, but certainly where you see it clearest, where people are unwilling to accept that there are sacrifices that they need to make to achieve whatever goal.
Yeah.
I don't see that necessarily with people that are going into university or tertiary education, or, whenever they're trying to achieve something, I think people inherently know, hey, there's a sacrifice to it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm going to university. That probably means that I'm going to have to sacrifice time to go to class and to study and to write exams.
Yeah.
and they don't go, hey, is there a way that you can just give me the degree without doing all that stuff?
I think because we're conditioned, what I see is people are happy to go to university for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, because you're conditioned that there's a guaranteed outcome at the end. If I do X, Y, and Z, guaranteed.
You and I think a lot the same.
Whereas physique development, there is no guarantee. We can plan and say this is the progression and but can you guarantee that the person will get there? You can't necessarily.
Absolutely.
And I think people, when they can't see that clear, I will get to X,
they just have to trust that they will.
It becomes blurred, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So to get more into the nitty gritty, because I don't know what I really like about what you're doing, which I think a lot of coaches aren't. You're focusing a lot on kind of the exercise mechanics, which I've changed my perception on. For a long time, my I guess default setting was, training performance and execution kind of should be covered within the first, I don't know, year and a half of, somebody's, training experience. But I find that the more advanced somebody gets, the more so their training execution actually becomes the glass ceiling to their progress. Because the more advanced somebody is, and the more compliant they are with the nutrition side of things, that becomes a lot less complicated.
Yeah.
And it's actually the training that holds them back for the most part. So you're putting a lot of effort into your content, which is awesome. And I think you're probably doing it, whereas a lot of people aren't, because you actually have a fundamental understanding of exercise science. But from a nutritional perspective, are you fairly diverse in the approaches that you use based on the clients?
Yeah. I mean, nutrition is so dependent on the person, for sure. Like, for example, when I left the bodybuilding scene and stopped competing, I had to become super flexible just to solve that issue with my relationship with food, because it was like I had to convince myself that I could eat different types of food and still progress. So I was like super flexible to the point where it was too flexible.
Yeah.
Now I'm at the point where I'm eating such good quality foods. I'm not that flexible because that's the way I am at my journey.
Yeah.
So when I was trying to fix my relationship with food, it was very flexible. Now that I'm looking for high performance within my work, I'm looking for max productivity every day. I'm looking to maximize what I'm doing in the gym, because like you say, as you're at a more advanced level, you have to become far more refined if you want to keep doing well.
Absolutely.
So even for myself, if I had to speak to myself 4 years ago, the nutrition would be very different to the nutrition I do now. And it's the same with clients. I mean, especially with genpop, you get some people coming to you that it's like, holy shit, this person's got big problems we need to solve with their food.
Yeah.
So then that approach would be very different to a guy who's happy to just put his head down, eat the food, get on with it.
Yeah.
So for sure, I mean, the food is so dependent on the person. And that's why I have my own podcast for the clients, which is like 110 episodes, because it's like you need to understand how health and fitness is very specific to the person. And the only way I've found to be able to articulate that to people is to put just a lot of content and information out there.
Yeah.
So they can start understanding things on a deeper level and then translating what that means into their life and their level of experience.
Yeah. So what I always try to do is explain to somebody, and this is why I like to have genpop and competitors. Because when you have a fairly advanced competitor where they're imminently going to be at a pro level or are already at a pro level, generally they're going to be aligned with, hey, what is the most optimal approach?
Yeah. What is the best thing I can do?
Yes. What is the best thing that I can do? And I'll just do that. And that gives you an opportunity to kind of test the waters in terms of, is this optimal? And how does that play out versus something which on paper might be slightly suboptimal? With genpop clients, sometimes you're going to get somebody, like you said, that just behaves like a pro.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've seen that. Yeah.
But sometimes, most often, you're going to have to implement a plan that's going to be varying degrees of suboptimal.
Yeah. 100%.
And what range of that would you work with? So, like, for example, will you have somebody who's entirely new that you will allow to just track calories? Or is it track macros? Is it follow some semblance of a meal plan? Is it track macros with a specified food list?
Yeah.
Is it some semblance of a meal plan? How do you work?
So I work in two ways. So I will provide meal plans that are a lot of variety. I mean, a ton. Just to give them the ability of, if you don't want to think about it right now, this is what you must do. Then underlying that, I'll suggest they track calories. If they feel at the beginning it's too stressful, whatever, okay, cool. Let's not track for now, but you're going to start tracking at some point, because it's the only way you're going to learn. Eating off the diet the entire life, you haven't become independent.
Yeah.
So then introduce the tracking of calories. And then eventually I want them not to rely on my diet. I want them to make their own and be able to take that ownership and responsibility for themselves. So it's very dependent on how the person comes to me, but I try cover every different version I can do. So the person coming has a version that will work for them at that time. And then we build on what they can do month on month on month. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, perceptions that I had many years ago, and I think perceptions that a lot of people do have now, is that somebody newer, fresher, less experienced, allow them to track. Somebody more advanced, like, oh, this guy is competing in a pro show, he's definitely following like a very basic meal plan. And in a lot of scenarios, I find the opposite. I think that I, as your coach, giving you the trust and responsibility to track your own macros, you don't just get that. You have to show me
100%
that you have what it takes to do that you can make good decisions
100%
under a variety of different circumstances to earn that right.
Yeah.
So show me for a couple of weeks that you can implement a meal plan.
Yeah.
Show me that you have what it takes, and then show me that when I give you some freedom, hey, let me give you some flexibility in this meal. You choose the foods that you want for this meal to hit those same macros.
100%.
Okay, you can do that. Now let's make it 2 meals. Now,
I feel like a genpop coming to you, their natural intuition is not good. So if you
Exactly.
give them the responsibility to make their own decisions, they're probably not going to make the best decisions, because they've relied on their own decisions, gotten to the point where they're not good enough. So I'll definitely not against removing the decision making to keep things really quick at the beginning, efficient, and get them moving. Then filter in, let's get you making your own decisions. Let's explain to you, further and further and further. Because if they start with tracking calories, it might be an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
But if you don't make them start making their own decisions, they're going to have to hire you forever, or eventually going to leave and they learn nothing, which I feel is a massive failure as a coach.
People are absolutely going to have to learn to track at some point.
100%.
Right? Even athletes, high-level athletes, even Pet, when I took him on, was like, no, man, I'm just going to follow a meal plan. You tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. And I'm like, you're saying that now because you're in contest prep.
Yeah.
Or we're about to enter a contest prep. And you're also saying that now because you're super motivated, because you've come to me and like now you're excited for this journey. So internally you're feeling, hey, whatever this guy says, to do, I'm just going to do it.
100%.
But then 3 months, 6 months, a year down the line, when now, motivation is transient.
Yes.
Let's be real about it. Everyone's talking about motivation. How do you stay motivated? You don't. You just keep moving forward even when you're not motivated. It becomes a habit. It becomes a routine. At some point, that shit is going to become boring. And when it does, and you can't follow a meal, or just logistically you can't.
Yeah.
You travel overseas, you're on vacation, it's Christmas, it's New Year, you're out with friends. Don't be that guy who's like, packing chicken, rice, and broccoli when you go out to your friend's house.
Exactly.
Learn how to track, man. It makes it a lot easier. So you're going to have to learn. But if you throw that on somebody new from the beginning and they are overwhelmed by it, and because they're overwhelmed by it, now they're anxious about it, and they're also not implementing it correctly, so they're not getting movement in the beginning, then they're immediately demotivated when they should
100%.
still be some sense of motivation.
Yeah. I feel like if you just follow the meal plan, you've got fuck all agility.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just following the meal plan, like you say, and then you're not motivated and it's Friday night, what's your decision making?
Yeah.
Shit, because you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the thing, again, talk to my clients all the time, you've got to be agile. You know, I've got some guys that travel for 4 days at a time. Well, what are you going to do while you travel? You don't have the perfect kitchen, and whatever the case may be. What happens if there's a crisis at work and you're working till late? What happens if you go through a divorce and now you've got to be able to think for yourself?
Yeah. Your wife's not cooking for you anymore. Yeah.
I mean, so if you don't have agility, no matter what level you're at, you're gonna backpedal at some point. You're gonna come unstuck.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, that's what's, because when I first heard about tracking macros and flexible dieting, I was like, sounds like some bullshit here.
Yeah.
Because I'd always been coached by people that had just given me meal plans.
Oh, same as me. I mean, I ate the same meals for like 4 months straight when I was competing.
Yeah, dude.
Like, it was just day after day after day after day.
100%. And I, even insofar as a coach that I was with for a long time, I would actually ask him, hey, listen, can I just swap this out with this? You know, it's just a carbohydrate source. I'm not asking to swap rice out with like Pop-Tarts. I'm asking to swap rice out with sweet potato. He's like, no.
Yeah.
With no reason. So I was like, this sounds like some bullshit. And what did that lead to? Every time I competed, every time I got lean, I didn't know how to handle things after the show.
100%.
So I just ballooned up, gained a ton of weight because I wasn't following a meal plan anymore. If there's no underlying strategy to the plan that you're following, then when there is no plan, there's no strategy.
Yeah.
You know?
And also, I always tell my clients, like, hey, there's 1,000 different meals you can probably eat and still get the same outcome. So let's find out which ones work for you. And let's not think that there's something special about only eating chicken. Because then if you get results and you've only eaten chicken, you become conditioned to think that chicken got you the result.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that.
But don't you know that like hake makes your skin thin?
Yeah. Keep the thin skin. And, yeah.
Yeah. Those great things that we used to believe back in the day that some people still do.
I think even for me, I believe some of those things back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, when you're competing, you tend to buy into these kind of mythical, special things that can make you the best.
Yeah.
When in fact, there's so many things that go into it. And to you to put your success in one thing, I feel you're going to come unstuck. If you feel that it's X that caused you to get Y.
Absolutely.
You know, if it's that single thing. And I think it's this one-dimensional thing that we've been talking about dieting. It's not one-dimensional that's going to get you results.
Yeah.
It's getting results, but also understanding why you got it, how you got it. And then if things change, can you change with those times to keep progressing?
Yeah. So on the traveling side of things, when you have a client that is traveling frequently like that, I weirdly enough have a lot of like international pilots. How do you tell clients to handle those times? Like when they're staying at hotels, staying at B&Bs, you know, or maybe they're traveling for work and it's incumbent upon them to attend work functions. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing.
I think it's dependent on what type of travel. I mean, I've got one guy who's like, I stay in 5-star hotels. They'll make what I want.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Okay, cool.
Problem solved. Yeah. But for those who obviously don't have that luxury, I mean, the thing I'll try to get them to think about is, okay, is there stuff you can take with you that's not going to go off in terms of snacks? Is there restaurants where you can order, you know, pretty safe options? And we just need to plan ahead and show some kind of intent. Because if you just rock up and be like, I'll figure it out as I go, you're probably not going to have the skill set to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
You and I could probably do that and get away with it, but that's because we've coached a lot of people, we've got a lot of experience.
And made the mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's one thing people don't realize, actually. The amount of mistakes we've made is far more than any clients will ever make.
Yeah.
That's what makes us be able to help people.
Yeah. That's why you want to go to a coach, because they fucked it up a bunch of times before you have, so they can tell you how not to fuck it up.
Exactly. But yeah, I would say we need to plan ahead, show some kind of intent. So there's some kind of framework and game plan. Can we use snacks that are not going to go off? So at least you've got the snacks covered. You've got a breakfast covered. Do you have access to a fridge in the hotel in your room? Or is there any kind of ability to make some kind of food or not? Generally, I won't expect a lunch and dinner to be prepared if someone's traveling.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to have to go and look at dependent on the shops if they've got the calories available on, ready-made meals.
Yeah.
Let's just pull one up. Generally, if someone's traveling and they're on the go, I won't necessarily be like, hey, it has to be on the dot.
Yeah.
In terms of protein, total calories, like let's just make sure it's within 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
So there's some room, there's a buffer. And I always feel, having a strategy and showing intent, even if you're 10% off, it's going to be better than going with nothing at all. And
absolutely.
And just hoping that it works out. So I think, again, it's just teaching the people to have that skill set to be agile, to think for themselves. Because if they're standing in the airport and it's 9 p.m, they can't message you for the answer.
Yeah, and then if they don't have a strategy, they're going to make a bad decision.
Yeah, so you need to, like you say, have them be independent to a certain degree, that they can have the answers when encountered with problems.
Yeah.
Not encounter a problem and go, shit, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Training wise, obviously, like online coaching is interesting because, as I've just mentioned, I think that for a lot of people, ultimately, their training is going to be their glass ceiling in terms of progress. But you're not a personal trainer. Well, you are, but not in practice. You're a coach now.
Yeah.
So you're not physically seeing people in the gym and correcting them and so on. So when you're working with people, how do you handle the training side of things?
Yeah.
Because you can program, and I keep saying this to people, it's like, guys, I can develop you, in theory, the greatest workout ever, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not executing it correctly.
100%. And also the level of effort. I feel someone can have a terrible training program, but if the effort's 10 out of 10, there's going to be some kind of result.
Absolutely.
Or you could have the most best optimal training program if it's 5 out of 10. And for me, that's the one thing, I'll get back to what you said now. That's the one thing I love about body transformations, physique development, is that the physique does not lie. It's a very clear picture of, did you put in effort or did you not? It has no time for feelings at that point. So if I have a guy who says he's training hard, but there's no muscle being acquired, I'm like, you're not training hard.
Yeah.
It's, you've seen it. You can see through people.
You can definitely see it, dude.
And that's the one thing I like about it. It cannot be faked. It cannot be bought on credit. It cannot, there's no, like most things in life at the moment, you can click and receive.
Yeah.
Physique development, you cannot do that.
No. And definitely not
long term as well.
Yeah.
Short term, you can maybe do something in 8 weeks, which was not great, but eventually it will be shown that it wasn't great.
100%. Paul, who's the head coach at Pro Physique, he said something to me many years ago where he's like, he stopped gauging a good coach by how their clients look on stage and started gauging a good coach by how their clients look like 6 months after they competed.
100%.
And that I hold true, not just for athletes, but for lifestyle clients as well.
Even with myself, I'll tell people like, hey, we're doing this now. We might be able to be 5% better now, but we risk being 20% worse later down the line, whatever the case may be. So I try to get them to understand, like, hey, I'm looking after you, even post your time with me. I'm thinking about how you're going to leave the service, how you're going to leave this result. Because you can gun someone and absolutely obliterate them
and have the greatest before and after ever.
Amazing. But then in my head, I know what I'm putting them in for. So 100%, like you said, coaching people, or like Paul said, what's happening after the comp, what's happening after the transformation picture on Instagram, what's happening after they've left the service. Because you and I have done things where you do obliterate yourself. And then you feel those negative consequences and all those things that you go through. And for me personally, I can't do that to someone else.
And then your feeling is, well, I shouldn't have done that in the first place.
Exactly.
And then your feeling is, well, I shouldn't have gone to that coach.
And you would
be right if that's how they conduct
and they're
things.
reinforcing that failure, and they're reinforcing those limiting beliefs, because you see it all the time where people completely trust a coach and then they get absolutely fucked up, and then they're like, see, I just don't have what it takes. And it's like, no, what was done to you caused this.
Yes.
How you were coached caused this failure. Wasn't your failure on your behalf. And
Absolutely.
You see that prevalent in the female market.
Where
it's like weight loss. And then ladies end up doing the same thing 10 times, thinking that they've got an issue, thinking that they're the problem. You see it in males as well, but it's like, no, if you do things the wrong way, you're guaranteed to fail at some point. Well, you are not. But going back to the point of how do I make sure people are training correctly? So I do actually PT a little bit now in the mornings. That's more so for me to be better. I must be honest, I didn't have to return to it, but I just wanted to get back into the gym, coaching people face to face, just to refine that skill set again.
Yeah.
And just to be in touch with watching someone else train for an hour, and then that being able to translate to content, that being able to translate to online.
That's helpful.
Yeah, because if you see people and you're only training yourself all the time, you do become conditioned to think everyone trains like you potentially. So
which they definitely do not.
Yeah. So that's helped me a lot in just getting back in touch with that. But, I encourage clients, I ask them to send me videos of them in the gym.
There we go.
But unfortunately, not everyone does that because they're shy, because whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. So the only thing I can do is ask. And if I receive, then there's obviously that help there. But then as much as possible, I will try to put our content to the clients showing this is how I prefer that you execute. These are the important cues. And then on top of that, and I feel like we spoke earlier why we train, if they see you putting in the effort, then it reciprocates with them. If they see you putting out a message on social media and talking a certain way and acting a certain way, it then gives them that I must also be doing this.
Yeah.
So a couple things that you try to do, like I said, to implement, get them to work as how you need them to. But you hope that the person also comes with that understanding that it's going to be tough. You need to push hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're training clients in the gym or when you're reviewing training footage, would you say more often you see failure to execute a movement correctly, or would you see just lack of intensity or proximity to failure, like which would be more common?
I think most people can get the general kind of form down on the exercise, but then there'll be little things that I'm like, this will lead better to this. So it's more about refining the form at that point. Mm-hmm. But for sure, the intensity and the effort, most importantly, when things get fucking difficult in a movement, what do you then look like?
Yeah.
I find that's the biggest issue I see now is what are the last 3 reps like when your head feels like it's going to explode?
Yeah.
What do you look like? Do you
and
stop
do you
there?
even get to that point?
Yeah. Do you even get there? Do you stop there? Does your form break down? Does that make you back off? Or is it like, right, this is where it fucking needs to happen?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing I see the most is true intensity, like really putting your head right into that movement.
Yeah, man. When I'm setting our plans, I devote a lot of time to explaining what I'm looking for from an intensity point of view.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, like reps in reserve or rate of perceived exertion is as objective an explanation as you can get, but there's still going to be somewhat of a subjective component about it.
Sure.
And I'll be asking guys, are you training to this intensity level? Yes, absolutely. And then I'll see their training footage. I'm like, dude, this set was supposed to be, let's say, 1 rep in reserve, and that looked like you had another 6. No way. And then if I have the opportunity to actually train with them,
Then they see
it and they're like, oh shit, I see what you meant. So it's certainly tough to relay that online.
Yeah.
Whereas that's where I think that your own content on your own page where people can see you
100%.
training that hard really plays an important role.
Yeah. But I think, in my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like those reps where everything feels like it's going to break, and that's a skill that has to be mastered. People don't always view lifting as a skill, but I feel like the ability to stay in place, not budge, not break mentally when it's like, holy shit, this is gonna hurt.
Well, fuck, man, I think there are a variety of skills.
Yeah.
I think there's actually a skill associated with the movement itself, especially when it's a more complex movement pattern. But I think there's a skill with just pain tolerance.
Yeah.
Just being able to stick that out. You have to feel that a few times to experience, hey, this is what it's supposed to feel like, and I can get through it, and I can push past it, and I'll be fine in a few seconds.
Yeah.
Because when you first experience it, you're like, I'm not going to be fine.
Yeah. I think a part of me just thinks in my head when it's coming, it's like, let's see how you can hold.
Yeah.
Let's see if you don't break. Like it's almost like a mental pursuit each day of, can you stay in position? Can you lock yourself in? What is going to happen right now?
Yeah.
So
Do you think everybody has that?
no, I don't think so. And I think that's why you need to become a little bit more diverse in what it is you're going to train for. Like for me, training to gain muscle is a little bit too shallow. At this point in my journey, it's more so, how good can I be at the movements today? How much can I push myself into that zone where it's like, holy fuck, what's going to happen now? It's more about that pursuit of excellence, that pursuit of self-mastery, that pursuit of overcoming yourself every single time I go in, compared to, I need to do this because then I'll have muscle and then I'll look good. Like, I think the way I look now is a byproduct of the mindsets I've adopted every day in terms of, how can I handle my nutrition under stress? How can I handle myself under pressure? How can I still rock up to training? It's more about, that for me is the part of my journey now. It's more about self-mastery. How can I overcome myself, my flaws, and still pursue excellence each day in this pursuit of being better?
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
That's awesome. I think that's a good point to leave it on, actually. Yeah. that was a very epic outro, so to speak. Okay. Yeah, sweet, man. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it, man.
It's funny that I've done podcasts with people. First time you meet them is on the podcast. But it was nice to meet you, actually, finally.
Yeah, I actually thought about that. Like, I felt when I rocked up here and you were like, nice to meet you, I was like, oh, I guess so. I felt like I had met you before because you've spoken so much intermittently and social media and all that. But
100%.
yeah, man, it was great. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother.